they called us the weakest species in the galaxy. No natural armor, no poisonous fangs, no ability to breathe in space. Just soft pink creatures who barely lived 100 years. The Galactic Council laughed when Earth applied for membership, pointing to our primitive rockets and chemical weapons. "Come back when you've evolved," they said. But they didn't know our secret. Hidden in the deepest archives of human mythology, buried beneath thousands of years of stories about knights and princesses, lay the truth about dragons. Not the fairy tales children heard at bedtime, but the real dragons, the ancient guardians who had once shared our world before vanishing into the stars, leaving behind only legends and something far more valuable: technology that would make the entire galaxy tremble. Dr. Sarah Chen thought she was just studying old cave paintings when she found the first clue. Commander Jake Rodriguez believed he was on a routine survey mission to a dead world in the Kepler system. Neither of them knew they were about to uncover humanity's greatest secret, one that would change the balance of power in the universe forever. Because sometimes, the monsters from our childhood stories aren't monsters at all. Sometimes, they're family we've forgotten. And, sometimes, they leave gifts behind for the children who remember how to find them. The galaxy was about to learn why humans tell stories about dragons. And why dragons never truly die. Dr. Sarah Chen wiped the sweat from her forehead as she crouched in the dusty cave, her headlamp casting dancing shadows on the ancient stone walls. The archaeological site in the mountains of Tibet had been her life's work for the past 3 years, but today felt different. Today, the paintings seemed to whisper secrets she had never noticed before. "Professor Chen, you need to see this," called her assistant, David, from deeper in the cave system. His voice echoed strangely, carrying an excitement that made Sarah's heart race. She carefully packed away her photography equipment and followed David's voice through the narrow passage. The cave opened into a vast chamber she had never seen before, hidden behind what had appeared to be solid rock until this morning's minor earthquake shifted the walls. The chamber was enormous, easily the size of a cathedral. But it was the walls that took Sarah's breath away. Every surface was covered in intricate carvings and paintings, far more sophisticated than anything they had found in the outer caves. The artwork depicted humans and dragons not in conflict, as most legends suggested, but working together. Building cities. Sharing knowledge. Flying among the stars. "This changes everything," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible in the vast space. "These aren't mythological representations. These are historical records." David nodded, his face pale with excitement and fear. "Look at this section, Professor. The dragons aren't attacking the humans. They're teaching them?" Sarah moved closer to examine the panel David indicated. The artwork was incredibly detailed, showing dragons with elongated heads and intelligent eyes demonstrating what appeared to be advanced technology to groups of humans. In one scene, a dragon touched a human's forehead, and streams of light seemed to flow between them. In another, dragons and humans stood together before what could only be described as spacecraft. "The dating on the rock formations suggests these paintings are at least 12,000 years old," Sarah murmured, running her fingers along the smooth stone. "That's impossible. Humans didn't have this level of artistic sophistication 12,000 years ago." "Unless we had help," David said quietly. Sarah spent the next 6 hours documenting every inch of the chamber, taking thousands of photographs and measurements. As she worked, a picture began to emerge that challenged everything she thought she knew about human history. The dragons in these paintings weren't the monsters of European folklore or the wise but distant creatures of Asian mythology. They were partners, allies, teachers. And, according to the artwork, they had left Earth not in defeat or exile, but on a mission. The final panel, located in the deepest part of the chamber, showed dragons departing Earth in great ships that looked nothing like human spacecraft. The dragons carried with them objects that glowed with inner light, while leaving behind other similar objects hidden in various locations around Earth. The humans in the painting were reaching toward the sky, as if promising to follow. As Sarah photographed this last panel, her hands trembling with excitement, she noticed something that made her freeze. In the corner of the painting, almost hidden among the decorative elements, were symbols that looked remarkably familiar. She had seen similar markings in recent reports from deep space surveys. 3 months later, Sarah sat in a sterile conference room at the Global Space Agency headquarters, facing a panel of officials who looked skeptical at best. Her presentation slides filled the large screen behind her, showing the cave paintings alongside recent astronomical data. "Dr. Chen," said Director Martinez, a stern woman with graying hair and tired eyes, "you're asking us to believe that dragons were real, that they were extraterrestrial visitors who helped develop human civilization, and that they left behind some kind of treasure map before departing Earth?" "I'm asking you to consider the evidence," Sarah replied, clicking to her next slide. "The paintings in Tibet aren't isolated. Since my initial discovery, I've found similar artwork in caves across 6 continents. Australia, South America, North America, Europe, Africa, and Asia all have hidden chambers with nearly identical depictions of human-dragon cooperation." She clicked again, and the screen showed a comparison chart. The symbols in these paintings match markings our deep space probes have detected on 12 different worlds in the Kepler system. The mathematical relationships between the marked locations suggest these aren't random occurrences. General Harrison, the military representative on the panel, leaned forward. "Even if we accept your interpretation of these paintings, Dr. Chen, what exactly are you proposing we do about it?" Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for. "I'm proposing we send an expedition to investigate these worlds. Specifically, I recommend we start with Kepler 442b. Our probes have detected the highest concentration of these symbols on that planet's surface, and the markings appear to be associated with artificial structures." The room erupted in murmurs. Director Martinez held up her hand for silence. "Dr. Chen, you're talking about humanity's first manned interstellar expedition. The cost would be enormous, the risks incalculable. We can't justify such an undertaking based on cave paintings and coincidental markings." "With respect, Director Martinez," Sarah said, standing and clicking to her final slide, "I don't think these markings are coincidental. 3 days ago, the probe orbiting Kepler 442b detected an energy signature from one of the marked locations. The signal matches no known natural phenomena, and it began broadcasting the day after my findings were published in the Journal of Xenoarchaeology." The room fell silent. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat as the officials processed this information. "The signal is complex, structured, and it's repeating in mathematical sequences that suggest intelligence," Sarah continued. "Something on that world is responding to the fact that we've finally started to understand the messages our ancestors left for us." Director Martinez stood slowly, her expression grim. "Dr. Chen, if what you're suggesting is true, then we're not just talking about an archaeological expedition. We're talking about first contact with a species that may have been waiting for us to find them for 12,000 years. "Yes," Sarah said simply. "That's exactly what I'm suggesting." 2 weeks later, Sarah found herself in a completely different type of meeting. The conference room at the Mars Orbital Station was filled with the finest minds in human space exploration. Commander Jake Rodriguez, veteran of the Jupiter missions, sat across from her, his weathered face thoughtful as he reviewed her presentation materials. "Dr. Chen," Jake said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent years in the black void between worlds, "I've read your reports. Fascinating stuff, really. But, from a practical standpoint, you're asking me to take my crew further from Earth than any human has ever gone, based on paintings in caves." Sarah had expected this reaction. "Commander Rodriguez, I understand your concerns. But, consider this, the energy signatures from Kepler 442b have been growing stronger every day since we first detected them. Whatever is on that world, it's responding to our discovery. We may have a limited window of opportunity here." Jake nodded slowly. "My team has been training for deep space exploration for 5 years. We've run every simulation, planned for every contingency we can imagine. But, Commander, what we can't plan for is the unknown. And what you're describing is about as unknown as it gets." Dr. Lisa Park, the mission's xenobiologist, spoke up from her position at the table. "Commander, the potential scientific value of this mission is immeasurable. If Dr. Chen is correct, we're not just talking about discovering alien technology. We're talking about reconnecting with a species that helped shape human development. The implications for our understanding of evolution, history, and our place in the universe are staggering." Engineer Marcus Webb, Jake's right-hand man and the ship's technical expert, pulled up holographic displays of their vessel, the Endeavour. From an engineering standpoint, the ship is ready. We've got the new quantum drive engines, enough supplies for a 3-year mission, and communication equipment that should keep us in touch with Earth even at interstellar distances. The question isn't whether we can go, it's whether we should. Jake stood and walked to the observation window, looking out at the curved surface of Mars below. Dr. Chen, let me ask you something. These dragons in your cave paintings, how did they leave Earth? What kind of technology would it have taken? Sarah joined him at the window. The paintings show them using spacecraft far more advanced than anything we've developed. Based on the depictions, they could travel between stars as easily as we travel between planets. But, Commander, here's what really interests me, the paintings also show them leaving behind technological gifts for humanity. Not just knowledge, but actual devices. What kind of devices? Marcus asked, his engineer's curiosity clearly piqued. The paintings aren't specific, but they consistently show objects that emit light and appear to enhance human capabilities. In several depictions, humans touching these objects demonstrate abilities far beyond normal human limits. Enhanced strength, the ability to communicate across vast distances, even what appears to be limited flight capability. Jake turned back to the group, his decision clear in his expression. All right, Dr. Chen. You've got your expedition. But we do this by the book. Full protocols, constant communication with Earth, and the moment anything seems too dangerous, we abort and return home. Agreed? Sarah nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and terror. Agreed, Commander. But I have a feeling that once we reach Kepler 442b, the decision about whether to return might not be entirely up to us. The final weeks of preparation flew by in a blur of training sessions, equipment checks, and endless briefings. Sarah found herself learning everything from basic spacecraft operation to emergency procedures for deep space exploration. The other team members, Commander Rodriguez, Dr. Park, Engineer Webb, and Navigator Elena Vasquez, became her second family as they prepared for the journey that would change human history. On the day of departure, Sarah stood in the observation deck of the Endeavour, looking back at Earth one last time. The blue marble that held all of human history was already growing smaller as they moved away from the inner solar system toward the quantum drive activation point. Having second thoughts, Doc? Jake asked, joining her at the observation window. Not second thoughts, Sarah replied. But I keep thinking about those cave paintings. The dragons didn't just leave Earth randomly. They left because they had somewhere important to go, something important to do. And they left those markers for us to follow when we were ready. You think we're ready? Elena asked, checking her navigation displays one final time before the quantum jump. Sarah thought about the question seriously. Humanity had spent 12,000 years developing technology, exploring their world, reaching for the stars. They had survived wars, plagues, disasters, and had somehow managed to work together long enough to build spacecraft capable of interstellar travel. I think, Sarah said slowly, that they wouldn't have left the markers if they didn't believe we would eventually be ready to follow them. Jake nodded and activated the ship's communication system. Earth control, this is the Endeavour. All systems green, crew ready for quantum drive activation. Beginning final countdown to interstellar jump. The voice from Earth control crackled through the speakers. Endeavour, you are cleared for jump. Good luck, and bring back something amazing. Jake looked around at his crew, each of them strapped into their positions and ready for humanity's greatest adventure. Quantum drive in 3, 2, 1, engage. The stars outside the observation window suddenly stretched into lines of light, and the Endeavour leaped forward into the unknown, carrying 5 humans toward a destination that had been waiting for them since before recorded history began. As the ship hurtled through quantum space toward Kepler 442b, Sarah closed her eyes and thought about the dragons. Somewhere ahead, on a world orbiting an alien star, lay the answers to questions humanity had been asking since they first looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They were about to find out that they never had been alone at all. The quantum jump lasted exactly 47 hours and 13 minutes, though to the crew of the Endeavour, it felt like both an eternity and an instant. When the stars finally stopped being streaks of light and returned to points, Sarah found herself looking at an alien solar system for the first time in human history. Kepler 442 was a red dwarf star, smaller and cooler than Earth's sun, but the planet they sought orbited close enough to receive adequate warmth. On the main view screen, Kepler 442b appeared as a blue-green marble, remarkably similar to Earth but with distinct differences in the cloud patterns and continental shapes. Incredible, breathed Dr. Park, her instruments already detecting signs of life on the planet's surface. Oxygen, nitrogen, atmosphere, liquid water, and I'm reading extensive vegetation across most of the landmasses. This world is very much alive. Navigator Elena Vasquez frowned at her displays. Commander, I'm picking up something unusual. The planet is generating a magnetic field far stronger than should be possible for a world this size. The field strength is consistent with artificial enhancement. Jake studied the readings with growing interest. Artificial enhancement? You mean someone modified this planet's magnetic field? That's what the data suggests, Elena confirmed. The field pattern is too regular, too perfectly aligned to be natural. Someone or something has been maintaining this planet's protective barrier for a very long time. Sarah felt her excitement growing. In the cave paintings, the dragons were always depicted as guardians and protectors. If they came to this world, it makes sense that they would ensure its long-term habitability. Engineer Marcus Webb looked up from his technical station. Commander, I'm detecting the energy signatures that Dr. Chen's probes identified. They're coming from multiple locations across the planet's surface, but the strongest source is on the largest continent, near what appears to be a mountain range. Any signs of current habitation? Jake asked. Marcus shook his head. No life signs that register as technological civilizations, but that doesn't mean much. If these beings are as advanced as Dr. Chen suggests, they might be using technology we can't detect. Jake made his decision. All right, we'll establish orbit and launch a full survey. Elena, plot us a standard orbital pattern. Marcus, prepare the atmospheric probes. Dr. Park, start your biological scans. And, Sarah, see if you can correlate those energy signatures with the symbols from your cave paintings. The next 12 hours revealed a world that was both familiar and utterly alien. The continents were arranged differently than Earth's, and the plant life had evolved along unique pathways, but the fundamental principles of biology seemed to apply. What was most intriguing were the ruins. Commander, Sarah called out, her voice tight with excitement, you need to see this. On the main screen, she displayed high-resolution images taken by their orbital cameras. Scattered across the planet's surface were structures that were clearly artificial but unlike anything in human architecture. They were elegant, organic-looking buildings that seemed to flow from the landscape itself, as if they had been grown rather than built. The construction appears to be some kind of crystalline material, Marcus observed, studying the technical readings. It's incredibly durable. Some of these structures look like they've been standing for thousands of years without maintenance, but they show no signs of deterioration. Dr. Park added her observations, the ruins aren't randomly distributed. They're positioned at specific points that optimize the planet's natural energy flows. Whoever built them understood this world's ecosystem on a fundamental level. But it was Elena who made the most startling discovery. Commander, I've been analyzing the energy signatures, and I think I know what they are. These aren't just markers or beacons. They're defensive systems. The entire planet is protected by a network of interconnected energy fields. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Protected from what? Unknown, Elena replied. But the power levels involved are enormous. Whatever the system is designed to repel, it must pose a significant threat. Sarah pulled up her correlation data. I'd matched the surface energy signatures with the cave painting symbols. There's a perfect correspondence. The locations marked in the paintings 12,000 years ago are exactly where we're detecting active energy sources today. Which means, Jake said slowly, that whatever left those paintings knew exactly what we would find when we got here. The decision to land was not made lightly. Jake consulted with Earth Command, but the 47-hour communication delay made real-time conversation impossible. In the end, the crew voted unanimously to proceed with the surface mission. They chose a landing site near the strongest energy signature, in a valley between two of the ancient crystalline structures. As the Endeavour's shuttle descended through the planet's atmosphere, Sarah pressed her face to the viewport, eager for her first glimpse of an alien world. The landscape was breathtaking. Rolling hills covered in vegetation that shimmered with colors just outside the human visual spectrum. Rivers that seemed to flow uphill in some places, defying gravity. And, everywhere, the elegant spires of the ancient structures reaching toward the sky like frozen music. The shuttle landed in a clearing that seemed almost too perfectly suited for their needs, as if it had been prepared for their arrival. As the engines powered down, the crew could hear sounds from outside, not the sounds of Earth, but something entirely new. Bird-like calls that seemed to carry melodies, whined through the crystalline structures that created harmonies, a world that sang to itself. Atmospheric readings are perfect for human survival, Dr. Park reported. No toxic gases, no dangerous microorganisms that I can detect. It's almost as if this world was designed to be habitable for us. Jake made the final checks on their equipment. Each crew member wore an environmental suit with full life support, communication gear, and emergency teleportation beacons that would return them to the shuttle if activated. They were taking no chances on humanity's first alien world. The airlock opened, and Sarah took her first step onto alien soil. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, making each step feel bouncy and strange. The air, when she cautiously opened her suit's external sensors, smelled of flowers and ozone and something else, something that reminded her of the moment just before a thunderstorm. The energy signature is coming from that structure, Marcus pointed toward a crystalline spire about a kilometer away. Unlike the other ruins they had seen, this one was clearly active. Patterns of light moved through its translucent walls like flowing water, and a low humming sound emanated from its base. As they approached the structure, Sarah noticed something that made her stop dead in her tracks. "Commander, look at the ground around the base of the spire." The earth was covered in symbols, the same symbols from her cave paintings, but these were not carved or painted. These symbols seemed to be growing from the ground itself, formed from some kind of luminescent plant life. "It's a message," Sarah whispered. "The symbols spell out coordinates in the mathematical system shown in the cave paintings. But they're not coordinates for this location." Jake studied the glowing patterns. "What do they point to?" Sarah pulled out her tablet and ran the calculations. "The coordinates indicate a location about 5 kilometers north of here. Whatever we're supposed to find, it's not in this structure. This is just a signpost." The journey to the coordinates took them through landscapes that challenged everything they thought they knew about planetary geology. Rivers flowed in perfect spirals, seemingly obeying laws of physics that didn't apply on Earth. Plants grew in mathematical patterns, their leaves arranged in complex fractals that hurt to look at directly. The sky itself seemed different, with colors that shifted based on the angle of observation. "This entire world has been modified," Dr. Park observed as they walked. "The ecosystem isn't natural evolution. Someone reshaped this planet to function according to different principles." As they crested a hill, the coordinates' destination came into view, and the crew of the Endeavour found themselves looking at something that would change human understanding of the universe forever. It was a city, but not like any city humans had ever built. The structures flowed and curved like living things, rising from the ground in organic spirals that seemed to defy gravity. And the city was not abandoned. Lights moved through the translucent walls of the buildings, and, in the distance, figures could be seen moving through the streets. "Are those?" Jake began. "Dragons," Sarah finished, her voice filled with awe and terror. "They're dragons." But these were not the dragons of human mythology. They were elegant, graceful beings with elongated bodies and wings that seemed to be made of energy rather than flesh. Their scales reflected light in impossible ways, creating rainbow patterns that shifted and moved across their forms. And they were clearly intelligent. The movements through the city were purposeful, organized, civilized. As the human crew stood on the hillside, one of the dragons raised its head and looked directly at them. Even at a distance of several kilometers, Sarah could feel the weight of that gaze, the sense of an intelligence vast and ancient beyond human comprehension. The dragon spread its wings that suddenly blazed with light and launched itself into the air. It flew toward them with impossible speed and grace, crossing the distance between the city and the hillside in seconds. "Should we run?" Elena asked, her hand moving toward her emergency teleportation beacon. No, Sarah said firmly. This is what we came here for. This is first contact. The dragon landed gracefully 50 meters away, its massive form somehow managing to seem non-threatening despite its size. Up close, Sarah could see that its scales weren't actually scales at all, but some kind of crystalline structure that stored and refracted light. The dragon's eyes were the most startling feature. They were clearly intelligent, filled with what could only be described as kindness and ancient wisdom. When the dragon spoke, its voice resonated not through the air but directly in their minds, a telepathic communication that transcended the barriers of language. Welcome, children of Earth, the dragon said, and Sarah could hear the smile in the mental voice. We have been waiting for you to find your way home. Jake stepped forward, his training taking over despite the unprecedented nature of the situation. I am Commander Jake Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Endeavor. We come in peace, seeking to understand the connection between your people and humanity. The dragon's mental laughter was warm and welcoming. Peace was never in question, young commander. Your people and mine are family, separated by necessity but never by choice. I am Zephyros, guardian of the fourth sanctuary. And you, Dr. Sarah Chen, have done exceptionally well in reading the messages we left for you. Sarah felt a shock of surprise that the dragon knew her name, but Zephyros continued before she could respond. Your species has reached the point we hoped you would, the point where you could begin to understand your true heritage. But time is shorter than we had hoped. The enemies that forced us to leave Earth 12 millennia ago have found us here. The defensive systems you detected from orbit are failing, and we need humanity's help to survive what is coming. The weight of this revelation hit the crew like a physical blow. Humanity's first contact with an alien species wasn't just a scientific discovery, it was a call for help from family they had never known they had. What enemies? Jake asked. What kind of threat are we talking about? Zephyros turned toward the sky, where the alien sun was beginning to set behind the crystalline city. The Devourers. A species that consumes not just worlds, but the very life force that sustains them. They have been hunting us across the galaxy for 50,000 years, and now they approach the sanctuary. Sarah found her voice. The technology you left on Earth, the devices shown in the cave paintings, are they still there? Oh yes, Zephyros confirmed. Hidden, protected, waiting for humanity to advance enough to use them safely. But, Sarah, you must understand, this technology is not just about weapons or defenses. It is about awakening capabilities that have been dormant in your species since we first shared knowledge with your ancestors. Dr. Park stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. What kind of capabilities? Zephyros smiled, an expression that somehow translated perfectly through telepathic communication. The ability to bond with dragon technology. The ability to fly among the stars without ships. The ability to protect worlds and nurture life across the galaxy. Humans were never meant to be confined to a single planet, Dr. Park. You were meant to be our partners in safeguarding the universe itself. As the alien sun set and the first stars appeared in the unfamiliar sky, Sarah realized that their mission had transformed from a simple exploration into something far more significant. They weren't just discovering their past, they were learning about their destiny. And, somewhere in the darkness between the stars, an ancient enemy was approaching, driving the need for humanity to awaken powers they had never imagined they possessed. How long do we have? Jake asked. Zephyros looked up at the stars, his expression grave. The Devourers will arrive in this system within one of your Earth years. By then, humanity must be ready to stand with us, or all the life in this part of the galaxy will be consumed. The crew of the Endeavor stood in the gathering darkness of an alien world, surrounded by the descendants of Earth's mythological dragons, facing the realization that humanity's greatest test was about to begin. The Dragon City at night was a revelation that challenged every assumption the human crew had made about alien civilizations. As Zephyros led them through the flowing streets, Sarah realized that the entire settlement was alive in a way that defied simple explanation. The crystalline buildings pulsed with gentle light that seemed to respond to the presence of the dragons moving through them, and the very ground beneath their feet hummed with energy. Your technology, Dr. Park observed, her scientific instruments working overtime to catalog what they were experiencing, it's biological, isn't it? Not mechanical like human engineering, but grown and nurtured. Zephyros nodded approvingly. Life and technology are not separate concepts for our people, Dr. Park. We learned long ago that the most sophisticated machines are those that can grow, adapt, and heal themselves. Your own bodies demonstrate principles that your mechanical technology is only beginning to discover. They passed through a market district where dragons traded not goods but knowledge, touching their crystalline scales together to share information directly. The exchange created brief flashes of light that painted the street in constantly shifting colors. The bonding process, Jake observed. Is that how you communicate all complex information? It is how we share our experiences completely, Zephyros explained. But, humans, we discovered 12,000 years ago, have a different gift. While we excel at preserving and sharing knowledge, humans excel at creating entirely new knowledge. Innovation, creativity, the ability to imagine solutions that have never existed before, these are humanity's unique contributions to the partnership. Engineer Marcus Webb looked around at the impossible architecture surrounding them. This city, how long has it been here? This sanctuary was established shortly after we left Earth, Zephyros replied. But, it is only one of 12 such cities scattered across this world. Each sanctuary specializes in different aspects of knowledge preservation and development. This city focuses on the technologies of protection and defense. Others concentrate on healing, exploration, communication, or creation. As they walked deeper into the city, Sarah noticed that some of the buildings seemed to be reaching toward specific points in the sky. Are those astronomical instruments? In a sense, Zephyros confirmed. They are monitoring stations that track the movement of the Devourers through space. We have been watching their approach for the past 3 of your years, calculating their route and preparing our defenses. They arrived at the center of the city, where a massive crystalline structure rose like a mountain from the ground. Unlike the flowing organic architecture of the other buildings, this structure had a more geometric design, with surfaces that reflected light in patterns that seemed to contain information. The archive, Zephyros announced. Here we have preserved everything we learned during our partnership with early humanity, including the location and activation codes for the technology we left on Earth. Inside the archive, the crew found themselves in a vast space filled with floating crystals that contained stored information. Dragons moved through the space with purpose, touching specific crystals to access the knowledge they contained. But, it was Dr. Park who noticed the most significant detail. Commander, look at the storage system. The crystals are arranged in patterns that match human neural networks. This entire archive is designed to interface with human brains. Zephyros led them to a specific section of the archive where the crystals glowed with a distinctly different light. The Earth cache, he explained. Everything we learned about human potential, and everything we left behind for you to discover when you were ready. Sarah approached one of the crystals, feeling drawn to it in a way she couldn't explain. As she reached out to touch its surface, Zephyros spoke a warning. Be prepared, Dr. Chen. The knowledge contained in these crystals is not just information. It is experience. When you touch them, you will temporarily share the memories of the dragons who created them. Sarah hesitated for only a moment before placing her palm against the crystal's surface. The world exploded into light and sensation. Suddenly, she was seeing Earth as it had been 12,000 years ago, but from a dragon's perspective. She could see the early human settlements, but, more importantly, she could see the potential that the dragons saw in humanity. Humans who worked together could accomplish things that neither species could achieve alone. The combination of dragon wisdom and human creativity produced innovations that advanced both civilizations by thousands of years. But, then, came the darkness. The Devourers, creatures of pure hunger that consumed not just planets but the life force that sustained them. Worlds stripped of everything that made them alive, left as dead husks floating in space. The dragons fought valiantly, but they realized that the war couldn't be won through direct confrontation. The solution was elegant and desperate: scatter the dragon populations across hidden worlds, preserve their knowledge and technology, and prepare for the day when humanity would be advanced enough to join the fight. The dragons left Earth not in defeat, but as part of a strategic plan that spanned millennia. As the vision faded, Sarah found herself back in the archive, but she was not unchanged. She could feel new knowledge in her mind, understanding of technologies and possibilities that humans had never imagined. The dragon technology, she said slowly, her voice filled with wonder, it doesn't just enhance human capabilities. It awakens abilities that were always there but dormant. Jake stepped forward, concern evident on his face. Sarah, are you all right? Your biosigns spiked dramatically during the interface. I'm more than all right, Sarah replied, and, as she spoke, she realized that she could sense the life force of every person in the room, could feel the energy flows of the city around them, could even perceive the massive defensive networks that protected the planet. I can see so much more now. Zephyros watched the transformation with satisfaction. Dr. Chen has experienced the first level of awakening. With proper training and the right technology, all humans are capable of similar enhancement. Marcus stepped forward, his engineer's mind working furiously. The technology you left on Earth, where exactly is it hidden? And how do we access it? Zephyros activated another section of the archive, and a three-dimensional map of Earth appeared in the air before them. 12 locations were marked with glowing symbols, scattered across the planet's surface. The primary cache is hidden beneath the Great Pyramid of Giza, Zephyros explained. Secondary installations exist under Mount Everest, in the Mariana Trench, beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, and in 8 other carefully chosen locations. Each cache contains different types of technology, designed to work together as a complete system. Elena studied the map carefully. The locations are positioned to create a global energy network. If all 12 sites were activated simultaneously, they would generate a planetary defense grid. Exactly, Zephyros confirmed. But activation requires specific individuals, humans who have been genetically prepared for bonding with dragon technology. Dr. Park looked up sharply. Genetically prepared? Are you saying that some humans carry dragon DNA? In a sense, yes, Zephyros replied. During our time on Earth, some humans and dragons formed very close bonds. The children of those unions carried genetic markers that make them compatible with our technology. Those markers have been passed down through human bloodlines for 12,000 years, waiting to be awakened. Sarah felt a shock of recognition. The cave paintings, they weren't just historical records. They were genetic markers, weren't they? You chose those locations because people with the right genetics would be drawn to them. Dr. Chen, you have been drawn to dragon-related sites your entire career not by coincidence, but by genetic memory. Your bloodline carries one of the strongest markers we left behind. Jake absorbed this information with military pragmatism. How many humans carry these markers? And how do we identify them? Zephyros activated another crystal, and the archive filled with data streams showing human genetic patterns across Earth. Approximately 1 in 10,000 humans carry the markers, distributed across all ethnic groups and geographic regions. The markers activate naturally when exposed to dragon technology, but they can also be identified through specific genetic testing. Commander, Marcus said, his face pale as he studied the genetic data. According to this information, my sister carries the markers. And so does Elena. Elena looked surprised. How is that possible? I've never had any interest in dragons or ancient mythology. The markers don't always manifest as conscious interest, Zephyros explained. Sometimes they appear as unusual spatial reasoning abilities, enhanced pattern recognition, or exceptional technological intuition. Navigator Vasquez, your ability to calculate complex orbital mechanics without computer assistance is actually a manifestation of your genetic compatibility with dragon navigation systems. The implications were staggering. Jake realized that their small crew had not been randomly selected for this mission. Earth Command might not have been aware of it, but they had unconsciously chosen people with the right genetic markers for first contact. We need to return to Earth, Jake said decisively. We need to locate and activate these technology caches before the Devourers arrive. Agreed, Zephyros said, but first, your crew must undergo proper training. Dragon technology is powerful, but it can be dangerous to unprepared users. Dr. Chen has experienced the first level of awakening, but full activation requires careful preparation. Over the next week, the crew of the Endeavour underwent the most intensive training of their lives. Each day brought new revelations about the capabilities that lay dormant within human genetics. Sarah learned to perceive energy patterns across vast distances, while Elena discovered that her navigation skills could extend to tracking objects moving faster than light. Marcus found that he could interface directly with crystalline technology, understanding complex systems through touch, and Dr. Park developed the ability to accelerate biological healing in herself and others. Jake's awakening was perhaps the most dramatic. As someone with natural leadership abilities, the dragon technology enhanced his capacity to coordinate multiple people and systems simultaneously. He could maintain mental contact with his entire crew, share information instantaneously, and make strategic decisions based on data input that would overwhelm an unenhanced human. But the most important lesson they learned was that dragon technology worked best when humans operated as a team. Individual enhancement was powerful, but when multiple awakened humans worked together, their capabilities increased exponentially. This explains the cave paintings, Sarah realized during one training session. They always showed humans and dragons working together, never individually. The technology wasn't designed to create super soldiers. It was designed to create perfect teams. As their training progressed, the crew also learned about the nature of their enemy. The Devourers were not a single species but rather a collective consciousness that consumed other life forms to fuel its expansion across the galaxy. They had been responsible for the extinction of dozens of civilizations over the past 100,000 years. The Devourers are driven by a fundamental misunderstanding of life itself, Zephyros explained during one of their final briefings. They believe that consciousness and life force are finite resources that must be hoarded and consumed. They cannot comprehend that life grows stronger when it is shared and nurtured. How do we fight something like that? Jake asked. By demonstrating the opposite principle, Zephyros replied. When humans and dragons work together, we don't just combine our strengths, we create entirely new forms of strength that neither species possessed alone. The Devourers have no defense against cooperative evolution because they cannot understand it. On their final night on Kepler 442b, the crew stood once again on the hillside where they had first encountered Zephyros. The alien stars wheeled overhead, and, in the distance, the dragon city glowed with gentle light. When we return to Earth, Sarah said, everything will change. Humanity will discover that they're not alone in the universe, that they have capabilities beyond anything they imagined, and that they're about to face the greatest threat in galactic history. Are we ready for that responsibility? Elena asked. Jake looked at his transformed crew, each of them now capable of things that would have been considered impossible just days before. I don't think anyone could be truly ready for what we're about to face. But I think that's the point. Readiness isn't something you achieve beforehand, it's something you develop by rising to meet the challenge. Zephyros approached them for their final farewell. Remember, the technology caches on Earth will not just provide tools and weapons. They will awaken the potential in many more humans. Within months of activation, Earth will have thousands of awakened individuals. Within a year, you could have millions. And the Devourers? Dr. Park asked. We'll discover that they have never faced an opponent quite like awakened humanity working in partnership with the dragon sanctuaries, Zephyros replied with confidence. The universe is about to witness something that has never existed before, a truly cooperative civilization with the power to protect life on a galactic scale. As the crew of the Endeavour prepared to return to their ship and begin the journey back to Earth, Sarah touched the dragon crystal that Zephyros had given her, a communication device that would maintain their connection across the vast distances of space. This isn't goodbye, she said. This is just the beginning of a partnership that will reshape everything. The stars seemed brighter as they walked back to their shuttle, and, in the distance, the dragons of the sanctuary sang a farewell that echoed across dimensions. Humanity was going home, but they were not returning as the same species that had left. They were returning as something new, something that the galaxy had been waiting for without knowing it. The Age of Awakening was about to begin. The return journey to Earth felt different from their departure. The crew of the Endeavour was no longer the same group of humans who had left the solar system weeks before. Their enhanced abilities made the quantum jump between stars feel less like traveling through impossible distances and more like stepping from one room to another in a vast cosmic house. Sarah spent most of the return trip in contact with Zephyros through the dragon crystal, coordinating the activation sequence for the Earth technology caches. The process was more complex than simply pressing switches. Each cache required specific genetic signatures and mental preparation to awaken safely.
Earth Control, this is the Endeavour requesting priority communication with Global Command, Jake transmitted as they approached the outer solar system.
We have critical intelligence regarding an imminent threat to Earth and the entire solar system. The response came back with barely contained excitement.
Endeavour, this is Admiral Thompson. Welcome home.
We've been monitoring increased energy signatures across 12 locations on Earth since you departed. Please confirm your crew status and prepare for immediate debriefing.
Jake exchanged glances with his crew.
The technology caches were already responding to their return, just as Zephyros had predicted. All crew members are healthy and accounted for, Admiral.
We have much to report, and we recommend immediate assembly of the Global Security Council.
What we've discovered changes everything. 3 days later, Sarah stood before the largest gathering of world leaders in human history. Representatives from every nation on Earth filled the United Nations Assembly Hall, while millions more watched the live broadcast. The evidence she presented, video recordings of the Dragon City, genetic analysis proving the human-dragon connection, and detailed technical specifications of the alien technology, left no room for doubt about the reality of their discoveries. The threat assessment is clear, Jake reported to the Assembly. Based on Dragon records, the Devourers consume entire star systems. Their arrival in our galaxy is imminent, and Earth stands directly in their path.
We have approximately 8 months to prepare adequate defenses.
Dr. Park stepped forward to address the biological implications. The genetic markers we've identified exist in roughly 750,000 humans currently living on Earth. These individuals can be safely awakened to interface with Dragon technology, but the process requires careful medical supervision and training.
The questions from the Assembly were endless. How could they verify these claims? What would awakening mean for normal human society? What were the costs and risks of the proposed defense systems? It was Elena who provided the most compelling demonstration.
Standing before the Assembly, she activated the dragon crystal that Zephyros had given her. The crystal glowed with inner light, and suddenly, a three-dimensional image of the dragon appeared above the podium, his telepathic voice reaching every person in the Assembly Hall. "Leaders of Earth," Zephyros said, his mental voice carrying the weight of 12,000 years of experience, "your species stands at a crossroads that will determine not only your survival, but your role in the cosmic community. The choice you make in the coming days will echo across the galaxy for millennia to come." The Assembly Hall fell completely silent. Several delegates fainted from the shock of direct telepathic contact. Others began frantically taking notes or reaching for communication devices. Zephyros continued, "The technology we left on Earth was never intended to make humans subservient to dragons. It was designed to awaken your species' natural potential and allow you to stand as equals in the community of life-protecting civilizations. But awakening must be chosen freely. It cannot be forced or coerced." Secretary General Martinez, representing the United Nations, stood slowly. "What guarantees do we have that this technology won't be used for destructive purposes? How do we prevent awakened individuals from gaining unfair advantages over normal humans?" "The technology itself provides those safeguards," Zephyros explained. Dragon-bonded humans gain enhanced abilities, but they also gain enhanced empathy and understanding. The neural changes that grant these powers also make it nearly impossible to use them for selfish or destructive purposes. Awakened humans become naturally protective of all life. Over the following weeks, the world transformed in ways that few could have predicted. The first technology cache was opened beneath the Great Pyramid of Giza, revealing a crystalline chamber that had been waiting in perfect condition for 12 millennia. When the first volunteers underwent the awakening process, the results exceeded all expectations. Dr. Amara Hassan, an Egyptian archaeologist who had spent her career studying pyramid construction, was among the first to bond with the dragon technology. The transformation was remarkable. Not only did she gain enhanced physical and mental capabilities, but she also developed an intuitive understanding of ancient engineering principles that allowed her to solve architectural mysteries that had puzzled scholars for centuries. It's not just about gaining new abilities, Dr. Hassan explained to a gathering of scientists studying the awakening process. It's about understanding connections that were always there but invisible to normal human perception. I can see how the pyramid structure channels and amplifies natural energy fields, how it serves as both a monument and a functional component in Earth's planetary defense network. Similar awakenings occurred at each cache location. In Tibet, mountain climbers found they could navigate impossible terrain with perfect confidence. In the depths of the ocean, marine biologists developed the ability to communicate with sea life. In Antarctica, researchers learned to perceive temperature variations with precision that rivaled scientific instruments. But it was the group awakenings that proved most remarkable. When teams of awakened humans worked together, their capabilities increased exponentially. A group of awakened engineers in Japan redesigned earthquake-resistant construction techniques overnight. Awakened medical researchers in Switzerland developed treatments for diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Awakened climatologists in Brazil created weather modification systems that could reverse environmental damage within weeks. Jake coordinated the Global Awakening program from a command center established near the Giza cache. His enhanced leadership abilities allowed him to maintain mental contact with awakened teams across the globe, creating a coordination network that functioned faster and more efficiently than any human organization in history. The changes are accelerating beyond our projections, he reported during a global conference call with world leaders. We're not just awakening individuals, we're awakening human civilization itself. Social problems that have existed for centuries are being solved in days by awakened teams working together. Marcus, working with awakened engineers from around the world, focused on upgrading Earth's existing technology with Dragon-enhanced capabilities. The beautiful thing about Dragon technology, he explained to a gathering of scientists, is that it doesn't replace human engineering, it enhances it. Our spacecraft become faster, our communication systems become more efficient, our power generation becomes cleaner and more abundant. But perhaps the most significant change was in human society itself. As more individuals underwent awakening, humanity began to function as a truly cooperative species for the first time in its history. National boundaries became less important as awakened teams worked together regardless of political divisions. Economic inequality decreased dramatically as awakened individuals naturally shared resources and knowledge. The transformation was not without challenges. Some governments initially tried to restrict the awakening process, fearing loss of control over their populations. Some religious groups declared the changes to be either miraculous or demonic, depending on their theological perspectives. Some individuals who couldn't undergo awakening felt left behind or excluded from the rapidly evolving society. Sarah addressed these concerns during a global broadcast 6 months after their return from Kepler 442b. The goal has never been to create a separate class of enhanced humans, she explained. Dragon technology enhances human capabilities, but it doesn't make awakened individuals more valuable or important than anyone else. The enhanced abilities come with enhanced responsibilities to protect, to nurture, to serve the greater good of all humanity. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Every awakened human I've met has become more compassionate, more understanding, more dedicated to helping others. The technology doesn't just change what you can do, it changes what you want to do. As Earth's defenses neared completion, the scope of the achievement became clear. 12 cache locations had been activated, creating a planetary defense network powered by the enhanced abilities of hundreds of thousands of awakened humans working in perfect coordination. The energy grid could protect Earth from asteroid impacts, solar flares, and even direct attacks from hostile spacecraft. But, more importantly, humanity had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a species capable of rapid evolution through cooperation rather than competition. The awakened humans didn't see themselves as superior to their unenhanced neighbors, but as guardians and protectors of all human life. Dr. Park, working with awakened medical teams around the world, made breakthrough discoveries almost daily. The awakening process appears to unlock genetic potential that every human carries, she reported. We're not creating artificial enhancements, we're activating capabilities that evolution had prepared but kept dormant until we were socially ready to use them responsibly. The most remarkable discovery came when awakened astronomers detected the first signs of the approaching devourers. The enemy was still months away, but their advanced scouts were already visible at the edge of the solar system. They're larger than Zephyros indicated, Elena reported from the enhanced astronomical facility that had been constructed in Earth orbit.
We're tracking at least 12 distinct vessels, each one the size of a small moon.
But, more importantly, we can see their effect on space itself. They're literally consuming the fabric of reality as they travel.
Jake assembled the Global Awakening Network for a coordinated response assessment.
Hundreds of thousands of awakened humans across Earth connected their enhanced consciousness, creating a collective intelligence that could process vast amounts of information simultaneously. The conclusion was both terrifying and encouraging. The Devourers were indeed a formidable enemy, but Earth's defenses were stronger than anyone had anticipated. The combination of dragon technology and human innovation had created defensive capabilities that exceeded even dragon projections. "We're ready," Jake announced to the world after the global consciousness assessment was complete. Not just to survive the attack, but to drive the Devourers away from this entire sector of the galaxy. Earth has become something the Devourers have never encountered before, a defended world with the power to protect other civilizations. As the final preparations for the confrontation began, Sarah stood once again in the chamber beneath the Great Pyramid, her hand resting on the central control crystal of Earth's defense network. Through the dragon crystal that connected her to Zephyros, she could sense the excitement and anticipation of the dragon sanctuaries across the galaxy. "They know we're ready," she told the assembled awakened teams. "For the first time in 50,000 years, the dragons have hope that the Devourers can be stopped permanently." Outside, across the surface of Earth, millions of awakened and unawakened humans worked together in perfect harmony, preparing for humanity's first defense of another species. Earth was no longer just a world, it had become a fortress, a beacon of cooperative evolution that would determine the future of life in the galaxy. The Age of Awakening was complete. The Age of Guardianship was about to begin. The Devourers arrived on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time, when most of the planet was going about its normal daily routine. The first sign of their presence was the dimming of the sun itself, as their massive vessels began absorbing solar energy from the edge of the solar system. Sarah felt their arrival through the Global Awakening Network before any instruments detected them. The sensation was like ice water flowing through her veins, a rawness that every awakened human on Earth experienced simultaneously. Across the planet, hundreds of thousands of enhanced individuals stopped what they were doing and looked toward the sky, sensing a presence that threatened the very concept of life itself. "Contact," Elena announced from the orbital defense station, her voice carried across the global network to every awakened human on Earth. 12 vessels, confirmed hostile. They're beginning systematic consumption of outer planet resources. Jake activated Earth's defense grid from the command center in Egypt, feeling the vast network of awakened humans connecting their consciousness into a unified protective force. "All teams, begin activation sequence. Full planetary shields, communication with dragon sanctuaries, and prepare for engagement." The transformation of Earth's defensive posture was unlike anything in human military history. Instead of armies marching or fleets deploying, hundreds of thousands of individuals simply stood where they were and opened their enhanced consciousness to the planetary network. Each awakened human became a node in a vast intelligence that spanned the globe, processing information and coordinating responses faster than any computer system ever built. Through the dragon crystal, Zephyros's voice reached every awakened human simultaneously. "The Devourers are attempting their standard consumption pattern. They expect resistance from isolated settlements or single-species defenses. What they will encounter instead is something they have never faced, a cooperative defense that grows stronger under pressure." Dr. Park, working with medical teams around the world, monitored the effects of full network activation on the awakened population. "Vital signs are stabilizing across all participants," she reported. "The collective consciousness seems to be distributing the mental load evenly, preventing any individual from being overwhelmed by the processing requirements." As Earth's shields powered up, the planet began to glow with a soft blue light visible from space. The energy field was generated not by machines, but by the coordinated life force of every awakened human working in perfect harmony. The Devourers' advanced scouts immediately altered their approach vectors, clearly surprised by the nature of Earth's defenses. "They're trying to understand what they're seeing," Marcus observed from his position coordinating the technical aspects of the defense grid. "Their scanning beams are bouncing off our shields, but, more importantly, they can't comprehend the energy signature.
They're used to technological defenses, not biological ones. The first direct attack came at noon, Greenwich Mean Time. A focused beam of consuming energy struck Earth's shields, designed to drain the life force from whatever it encountered. Instead, the beam was absorbed by the shield grid and converted into additional defensive power. Sarah, serving as the primary interface between the human network and the Dragon technology, felt the attack as a sensation of warmth rather than damage. "The shields aren't just protecting us," she announced to the global network. "They're actually growing stronger from each attack. The Devourer's own weapons are feeding our defenses." This impossible result caused the Devourer fleet to pause their assault, apparently conferring among themselves about this unprecedented development. During the lull, Jake coordinated with the Dragon sanctuaries across the galaxy. Kepler 442b reports that the Devourers are requesting additional vessels, he announced to Earth's defense teams. "They're calling for reinforcements because they can't understand how we're turning their attacks into defensive strength." Zephyros provided crucial intelligence about Devourer psychology. They operate on the principle that consumption equals power. The concept of power that grows through sharing and cooperation is literally incomprehensible to them. Their attacks are becoming increasingly desperate because our response violates their fundamental understanding of how energy and life force function. The second wave of attacks began 3 hours later, involving all 12 Devourer vessels in a coordinated assault designed to overwhelm any conceivable defense. Beams of consuming energy struck Earth's shields from multiple angles, each one powerful enough to strip the life from an entire planet. But Earth was no longer just one planet. Through the Awakening Network, it had become connected to every Dragon sanctuary in the galaxy, creating a defensive grid that spanned light years. The Devourers weren't attacking a single world, they were attacking a galactic civilization that had learned to share strength across impossible distances. "Power levels are actually increasing," Elena reported with amazement. "Each attack is being absorbed not just by Earth's grid, but by the entire network of sanctuary worlds. The energy is being distributed across 12 star systems and converted into additional defensive capabilities." Dr. Park made a stunning discovery during the height of the assault. The attacks aren't just being absorbed, they're being transformed. The consuming energy that the Devourers use to drain life is being converted into life-generating energy. Every attack is actually making Earth more alive, not less. This transformation was visible from space as Earth began to glow brighter with each attack. The planet's biosphere started accelerating its growth patterns, healing damage from centuries of industrial development within hours. Awakened humans reported feeling more energetic and capable with each Devourer assault. But the most significant development occurred when the attack energy reached the awakened human population directly. Instead of being drained or damaged, the awakened individuals began to evolve further, developing capabilities that exceeded even Dragon projections. Sarah, as the primary interface with the defense grid, underwent the most dramatic transformation. Her consciousness expanded beyond Earth's network to encompass the entire galaxy, allowing her to perceive the location and status of every living world within the local galactic arm. "I can see them," she announced to the amazed human and Dragon networks. "Every Devourer vessel, every consumed world, every hidden sanctuary. But, more importantly, I can see the pattern of their expansion. They're not just randomly consuming worlds, they're following a specific route towards something in the galactic core." Jake coordinated the response to this new intelligence. "If we can predict their route, we can prepare defensive positions at critical points. But, more importantly, we can warn other civilizations and help them prepare their own defenses." The third assault came at sunset, with the Devourers attempting a different strategy. Instead of attacking Earth directly, they began consuming the outer planets of the solar system, hoping to drain the energy that fed Earth's defensive network. This proved to be their critical mistake. As Jupiter and Saturn began to lose mass to the Devourer consumption beams, Earth's awakened network did something unprecedented. They reached out across space and began sharing Earth's life force with the dying worlds. Marcus, monitoring the technical aspects of this impossible rescue operation, reported results that challenged every law of physics. "We're not just preventing the consumption of Jupiter and Saturn. We're actually restoring them to health and enhancing them beyond their original capabilities. The gas giants are developing their own life-supporting energy fields."
The sight of planets being healed and enhanced in real time broke something fundamental in the Devourer collective consciousness. For 50,000 years, they had operated on the principle that consumption was the only path to power. Witnessing power that grew through giving and sharing rather than taking created a psychological crisis within their ranks. 3 of their vessels have stopped attacking, Elena reported. They're just hovering near Saturn, apparently unable to comprehend what they're observing. Zephyros, coordinating with dragon sanctuaries across the galaxy, provided additional insight. This is the first time in recorded galactic history that Devourers have encountered a defensive strategy that actually heals the things they attempt to consume. Their collective consciousness is fragmenting because the fundamental assumptions of their existence are being proven false. The opportunity created by this confusion allowed Earth's network to take the offensive. Instead of merely defending against attacks, the awakened humans began projecting healing energy toward the Devourer vessels themselves. The results were immediate and shocking. As Earth's life-enhancing energy reached the Devourer ships, the vessels began to change. The dark, consuming structures started to glow with soft light. Internal energy patterns shifted from consumption to generation. We're not destroying them, Sarah realized with wonder. We're healing them. The Devourers aren't inherently evil, they're a species that became trapped in a destructive pattern. But they can be restored to their original nature. Dr. Park, monitoring the biological aspects of this transformation, made an incredible discovery. The energy signatures from the healing Devourer vessels match patterns from the most ancient dragon archives. I think the Devourers were originally a life-supporting species like the dragons, but something caused them to become locked in a consumption cycle. As the healing process continued, the first Devourer vessel completed its transformation. Instead of the dark, angular structure that had arrived in the solar system, it had become something beautiful, a crystalline ship that generated light and life force rather than consuming it. A new telepathic voice reached the Earth network, but this one carried wonder and gratitude rather than hunger. We remember. We were the gardeners once, tending to young civilizations across the galaxy. But the hunger came, and we forgot who we were. How did you help us remember? Jake, speaking for all of humanity through the global network, replied, "We learned from those who taught us that strength grows through sharing, not taking. Life becomes more powerful when it protects other life rather than consuming it." Over the following hours, all 12 Devourer vessels underwent the transformation, their consciousness gradually returning to their original nature as galactic gardeners and protectors. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for 50,000 years was healing, remembering their true purpose. This changes everything, Zephyros announced to both the human and former Devourer networks. The greatest threat to galactic life has not been destroyed, it has been restored to its original purpose as guardians and nurturers. As Earth's defense network powered down from full combat status, Sarah found herself at the center of a new kind of consciousness, one that included not just awakened humans and dragons, but also the restored gardener species that had once been the Devourers. "We have a choice to make," she announced to the combined network. "We can return to our separate worlds and species, or we can work together to heal all the damage that was done during the age of consumption." The response was unanimous across all 3 species: heal everything. What followed was the greatest restoration project in galactic history. Teams of humans, dragons, and gardeners worked together to restore consumed worlds, revive extinct species, and rebuild civilizations that had been lost to the consumption wars. Earth became the coordination center for this vast project, with awakened humans serving as bridges between the different species and their unique capabilities. Months later, Sarah stood once again in the chamber beneath the Great Pyramid, but now she was not alone. Representatives from dozens of species stood with her, all connected through the expanded awakening network that had grown to encompass hundreds of star systems. "The universe is alive in ways we never imagined," she said to the assembled beings. "Every world we heal becomes part of the greater network. Every species we restore adds new capabilities and perspectives to our collective strength." Jake, now serving as the coordinator for Galactic Defense Networks, reported on the scope of their achievements. "We've restored 47 star systems, revived 18 extinct species, and established defensive networks around every inhabited world in the local galactic arm. More importantly, we've proven that cooperation can overcome any threat, no matter how powerful." Dr. Park, working with medical teams from a dozen species, had made discoveries that revolutionized understanding of life itself. The awakening process isn't limited to humans. Every sapient species can develop enhanced capabilities through the same cooperative consciousness principles.
We're not just building a galactic alliance, we're facilitating the evolution of intelligence itself.
As the restored galaxy celebrated the end of the consumption wars and the beginning of the gardening age, Earth remained at the center of it all, not as a ruling planet, but as the world that had figured out how to turn enemies into allies through the simple act of sharing strength instead of hoarding it.
Humanity had left Earth seeking to discover if they were alone in the universe.
They had returned as the species that proved that no one ever had to be alone again. And, in caves around Earth, new paintings were appearing, not depicting the past, but showing visions of a future where every star system was protected, every species was valued, and the principle of cooperative evolution spread life and consciousness throughout the galaxy.
The dragons had been right.
Humanity's greatest strength was not in their technology or their intelligence, but in their ability to turn strangers into family and enemies into friends. The age of guardianship had begun, and it would last as long as there were stars in the sky.